First of all, there is nothing like a perfect revision session. You can try to make it perfect, but it will never be. So the first thing you need to do is to just accept it and work with what you have available. You will try your best, and that's what's most important. Welcome to this video. The very first thing that really makes or breaks the revision session is the environment, and specifically we are talking about distraction-free environment. The reason why this is so important is that when you're constantly switching your attention from one thing to another, from your revision material in front of you to your phone or to your friends, you are never going to be able to achieve the goal of your revision session unless you truly focus on it. Creating an environment when you feel like you know you can concentrate is the very first step you need to do in order to create a perfect revision session. And as I mentioned at the beginning, there is never going to be perfect environment as well as any other aspect. It's always going to be somehow distracting. Otherwise, you would have to be locked somewhere with no windows, with nothing, and just the revision material. So we are trying our best to make the environment distraction-free so you can fully concentrate on the task in front of you. Without designing the right space for you, your revision sessions are going to fail before they actually start. So next time you will think about studying in a loud, noisy environment, listen to your inner voice and think about how you can go somewhere else or make some small changes. Tell your friends to come 1 hour later to your room and really focus on what's in front of you so you can then pay full attention to the other thing you were distracted by. The second step you need to do when you're trying to create a perfect revision session, or at least approach the perfection, is creating the desired level of difficulty during your revision. And what I mean by that is to make sure that what you are doing during your revision is something that's difficult. You don't want to do something that you feel like you don't do any work, or at least maybe you can feel like you're doing something and you feel like, okay, now I reread this note over and over again for 2 hours. I've done so much revision. But no, when you're rereading, you're not actually getting information into your brain, so you have not learned anything. Highlighting and rereading your textbook is somehow too easy for you, don't you think? The way how you can test whether your revision sessions are at the desired level of difficulty is to try to explain the concept to someone else. After your 2 hours of highlighting and rereading your textbook, I really doubt that you will be able to recall the information and explain your friend the concepts covered in the material. You may wonder, where's that sweet spot when you are revising and you're really revising, that you're not just sitting over textbooks and feeling like you're revising. The desired level of difficulty is about finding that sweet spot when you feel like you are mentally engaged, when you feel like it's hard. When you feel it's hard, it means you are doing something well. When it feels like it's not hard and when you feel like this is easy and you understand everything, then you probably don't. Very good strategy that I use is, as I go along any material, article, anything I need to cover, I try to ask myself questions as I go along. Let's say I read a paragraph and then I try to think about what the potential exam question could be, or what's the main point of this paragraph? What have I just read? And when I finish the paragraph and I realize that I don't remember the main point, I go back. Here is a really important thing, that you don't want to fall into the trap of rereading the same thing over and over again. So in case you don't understand something immediately, that's also fine. I talked about it in my other video, but just move on and come back to it later. But important thing is to not get stuck on these details and move on. Without that desired level of difficulty, when you feel like your brain's working, when you feel like this is difficult and you need to think, that's when you reach the sweet spot, when you are learning and when you are really revising and not just rereading. This brings me to my next point, which is to start early. Perfect revision session consists of a good attitude towards what you're going to working on, and when you don't start ahead of time and you procrastinate, you will not cover everything you wanted to and you will feel stressed. If you regularly postpone your revision session, then you will start approaching these revision sessions with fear. With fear and anxiety and stress and worries, you will not be able to fully concentrate. Starting early is really something you can do by planning ahead. So when your teacher announces the date of your exam, just put it down and plan ahead. Depending on how big the exam is, you can create blocks of time where you're gonna spend revising at a desirable level of difficulty, and when you start ahead, it means your revision session is gonna be perfect because you will know exactly what you want to do. You will know that you have everything you need to master that topic. You've got time, you've got resources, you've got good state of mind, and now you can fully concentrate in a distraction-free environment. Another ingredient necessary to make a perfect revision session is to come to the revision with a clear goal in mind. Because when you approach the session with kind of a vague statement that you're going to revise chapter 5, you will probably start at the beginning of the chapter and try to work your way through the textbook from beginning to the end, which is wrong because you are not supposed to study chapter 5, but you're supposed to study concepts from chapter 5. The best thing you can do is before you start, you make a list of concepts, what you need to cover, so you're clear on a specific topic that you need to master during that session. It can be one, it can be several ones, depending on how hard the chapter is, but don't be vague with chapter 1, because chapter 1 can consist of 5 important concepts or 10 important concepts. If it's 10 important concepts, you need twice as much revision sessions to cover them all. Be strategic and really think what's your goal when you approach your revision session. Then it's going to be perfect because you will have a goal in mind, and then you can break that big goal into several smaller ones. For example, if you want to cover photosynthesis, you should break the revision session into light dependent and light independent reaction, and each session could be dedicated to one of these because both of them belong to the topic of photosynthesis. But if you just said chapter 5, which includes photosynthesis but also respiration and 500 other topics, your revision session will not gonna be focused. Moving on to another important step, which is to make a personal association with that specific revision. And what I mean by this is, let's say you do the revision on photosynthesis. At the end, you write on a small card, it can be a flashcard, it can be a piece of paper, what you have covered, what you remembered, without using the revision material you used during your session, trying to recall the information, putting your own examples, rather than relying on examples from the textbooks, which can be useful, but they are often not complete. Go online, watch some videos, and search some other associations that you can link to the topic, and put this on this card or a piece of paper, so you'll have a small summary of your session. But I don't want it to be a bullet point kind of thing when you just cover everything you went through, but make it personal. Maybe there was a hard word you could not remember, and now you remembered something which sounds similar, and you create association, so you put these two words next to each other on that mini flashcard and you will remember it better. Find some cues which will help you link this material, which feels like studying for exam and that's it, to something you already know and something you are familiar with. And when you create this connection, then you will learn it, because our brain learns by making connections. So if you find a way how to make your revision session and what you learned during that revision session relevant to your daily life and relevant to what you already know, that's when you're going to remember it, and then your revision is going to be perfect. The next thing is so important that I think I should have put it at the beginning of this video, and that is to take regular breaks. In order to make a revision session perfect, you need to take breaks at least every 50 to 90 minutes, which works the best for me, but you can do Pomodoro sessions if that works for you, and then you take break after every 25 minutes. This is definitely the most challenging ingredient of a perfect revision session for me, because I often get caught up in the work and I realize how hours pass and I'm still sitting over it, and then I'm completely tired and it's not efficient, it's not good. Set alarms on your phone every half an hour. What works the best for you, you need to find by trying different lengths of your revision session, but without it, it's impossible to keep going. And if we want our revisions to be perfect, not just one perfect and then horrible revision sessions when we are completely drained from the first ones, by taking regular breaks, you will ensure that each session is long enough to really cover material during that time, but then it's time to really rest and do something else. The last but not least ingredient is reviewing material you have covered during your previous session. This allows you to see whether you really understood what you went through. As I mentioned, really good strategies to ask yourself questions or search some questions online. And when you identify gaps that you need to fill, start the next session with revision of what you did not know the previous session. That's it. I think these 7 things are important for perfect revision session, or at least getting closer to that ideal. Don't forget that perfection is the enemy of good. Try your best, but do not focus too much on making it perfect, because perfect does not exist. We are just trying to get as close as possible and enjoying the process. Let me know in the comments below, what's your biggest challenge when you revise? What of these 7 steps do you find the most challenging? For me, personally, it's definitely taking breaks. I would love to hear what is it for you, and I'll see you next time. Bye!